Hello everybody, I'm Minecap. You might recognize me from my most popular project, Breakout Redux. In this tutorial, I will be going through all the essential things a platformer creator needs to have in mind when working on a new level. Also, real quick, I will be mostly talking about platformer game design in this video. This is not a video where I show you a specific design to mimic or show you a formula of things to copy. Instead, I'll be focusing on getting you ready to work on a platformer level, to ensure a fun and satisfying creating experience for you and all those interested in trying your level. I divided the video into chapters for you to come back to whenever you need to. Hope you enjoy. It's extremely important to know how hard you want your level to be from the very beginning. With a normal classic level, you could just wing it till you get a feel on how hard it is. But with a platformer, you need to know exactly how hard you want your level to be. Because in this category, levels are long and take way longer to complete than a classic level. So the margin of error when gauging its difficulty gets way higher, and the consequences are way worse. I don't think RobTop or every single moderator who sends a platformer would actually bother playing the entire level before rating or sending it, but get a general feel first. Now, I'm not saying all moderators do that, but there has got to be cases where at least a few moderators didn't bother playing a whole level and went with the vibes only. The problem with platformer levels is that you need to get the player engaged all the way through. Platformer levels get way much more hate than a classic level. Why? Because they demand your time. They demand your respect. They take from 15 to 45 minutes on average to beat. And it's also not like a classic level in this sense. With classic levels, you could get exactly where you wanted in practice mode again in a minute. But even in practice mode in platformer, it will take you almost the exact same amount of time, but maybe faster because you got better at the level. But it's still so time consuming. So a level that demands this much time from the player, then it just spits in the player's face by an unintentionally bad part will cause the player to riot against the entire level and actually just hate it and insult the creator themselves. So when you open the comments on platformer levels and you find people just insulting the level all the time, it makes perfect sense. This is someone who played a level, who wanted to have fun with the game, then suddenly they just can't do that anymore, and there's no way around it. So okay, how do I fix this? How to ensure that a platformer level will be fun all the way through? First, get a lot of playtesters, preferably 3. Someone who sucks at platformers, someone who's kinda good at them, and someone who's very good at them. Start with a mid-range player, someone who's kinda good at the game, because now you will have the average opinion of a player on this level. So you will go ahead and tweak it. Then give it to a good player, someone who will beat it fast. Giving it to a good player first is bad because good players tend to ignore bad game design choices. Why? Because they are used to playing difficult stuff, so they might not feel a steep change in their playing experience. And then finally, give it to the worst player, because now this will be the final filter of quality to ensure that your level is as best as it could be. Because even you could be way too close-minded to realize some stuff that needs to be changed in your own platformer because of how used you got to the gameplay that you made. For example, if you make a unique game mode, you are technically the best player at this game mode until proven otherwise. You might overlook some bugs or unfun controls in your own thing because you're the designer of said gimmick. You made it. If you give it to a casual player or even a good player, they might actually have a hard time figuring it out at first before even mastering it. So it's always important to playtest your levels to know the exact difficulty. As for the rating that you give for a level at the end of you uploading it is very important. Do not give the rating based on your own opinion, but an average of the 3 playtesters that you have gotten for your level. This will be the number of moons that you will send it to RobTop for. Because oh boy, you do not want to get yourself in the hell that is a miss rate. Entire platformer levels that look absolutely amazing and gorgeous have been ripped apart by the community because of miss rate. You can have a 2 moon that feels like a 5 moon or a 6 moon, or a 6 moon that feels like an insane 9 moon. You can have an 8 moon that is just an easy demon. This can sometimes be RobTop's fault. If you have the level play too easily, RobTop will just feel that this is the vibe you're going for and give it a difficulty tier lower. But you need to make sure that the mods know that your level is a demon. You have no idea how much a player's morale would increase knowing that they're spending their valuable time on an easy demon instead of a 7-8 boon. And obviously same goes for the lower difficulties. Now that I've gotten this section out of the video, let's start the fun part. First, let's get the exploitation part out of the way. Now, what does that mean? Basically, level exploitation is when a player cheeses their way through a level to make it easier for themselves. Sometimes it's intentional, and it's just a creative choice that the person who made the level had. But sometimes you don't want that to happen. Sometimes you just want the player to play the level as you intended. You also don't want them to see stuff that you don't want them to see. And it all comes down to the mindset. When you implement this mindset, you will actually increase the overall quality of the level you're working on. Now, what is it? Be an asshole to your own level. I'm serious. When playing the level from the very beginning, I want you to behave like a crackhead. Try your best to find every nook and cranny in the level that is not intended to be accessed. It might sound simple on paper, but most creators, when they build something, they just forget about everything and they focus on the main route of gameplay that they have made and basically just have everything else as a blur. Force yourself to explore your own level again in the eyes of someone who has malicious intent. This will actually ensure that when someone tries to actually cheese your level, you would have patched it a long time ago. Now, level pacing. Level pacing is quite important. This makes or breaks an entire level. Misconception: level pacing is not how long you take to beat a level, but how frequently you engage with the level and do actual inputs in it. There are levels out there that would drive a person actually insane because of how long the cutscenes are in them. And where this cutscene is very important to the level's pacing. Usually, a cutscene at the beginning or the end of the level is fine, but a cutscene happening in the middle of the gameplay is usually the biggest problem with a level. And let me be very specific with this. A cutscene that happens in the middle of the level that you see more than once. Let's take an example, shall we? La Citadel. This is a level that has a door opening animation that lasts
for 11 seconds.
Now, as bad as this would have been actually excused if it happened only once. But instead, the checkpoint placement makes it so that you have to do this section again, watching the same 11 seconds over and over and over and over again till you actually finish the entire part. The creator could improve this by basically making the door animation last for only 3 or 2 seconds instead of a tedious 11. Also, cutscenes are not just door openings. Cutscenes can just be something in the level that happens. I see many creators have the camera pan to a specific thing that's happening right now and then come back to the player again. If done correctly, this can be fine. But sometimes the camera movement can be way too slow or just way too jarring for the player to actually understand what's happening. As for the camera movement, do not use the camera for just anything that happens in the level. Use it when you really need to. I think the door opening animation was not a significant enough thing that happens in the level that warrants the camera to pan entirely to it to show it opening. What would be interesting, if you just pull the lever, you will hear a noise and then you will go back again to check what changed in the level. And if the door looks insignificant and just blends in with the environment, just point an arrow. Of course, you don't need to do that, but that is just an example of what you can do to not abuse the camera controls, because moving the camera and then back to the player again takes a long time. This long time could be used to actually play the level instead. If you have something that's not even part of the gameplay happen, why just stop the player entirely and just have it fall in front of you? La Citadel always does this too. Those camera events, even though alone they do not sound like a long time, but when you add them up to the whole level, it just feels generally slow, even if you're speedrunning it. So, what's the take from this? Only use the camera trigger when an important event is happening in the level. If you over-abuse the camera trigger, this will just make the level boring for the player, especially if you make it happen more than once. Which actually brings me to my second point. The way you place your checkpoints is very important. If you place a checkpoint before a long transition, and when the player dies, they respawn there and they have to watch it over and over again, believe it or not, people will not be jerking off to how good your transition is, but will simply close the level and just hate on it. This one change could actually destroy the entire level. One last note, long cutscenes are okay under very specific circumstances. If the cutscene you made will genuinely help the player progress in the level and it has actual information about the gameplay you're about to experience, sure, make it long. If the cutscene foreshadows something that you need to know that will happen later in the level, sure, also make it long. However, even if the cutscene is necessary, do not make it happen more than once. This is where people go wrong. A repeating long cutscene, even if it's informative to the level, is boring. The player doesn't really need to see this again because they already have heard it. Dialogues are also a form of cutscene. You can choose to add a skip button to basically make the pacing faster. That's an easy way to do it. But you can have short consecutive dialogues that happen while you're playing. Dialogues while you're playing the level are so cool. Why don't more people do that? I'm gonna do this. Oh boy, hazards. Now this will be a bit quick. Basically, hazards are anything and everything that kills you in a level. Now this is pretty simple to understand. A hazard should basically be something that looks dangerous to the player, something that looks off. If your world is full of round objects and basically the platforming experience has like flat surfaces, then it's best to make it spiky. Well, make sure that those hazards stand out very, very much. Never make the hazards blend in with the background. Do not make it look like the hazards are part of the background. That is one of the worst things that you can do. How do you do that? Make sure to color them differently. If you use strong colors in your level, make sure to use the opposite complementary color for your hazard so that people actually know what they should avoid. If you're making an art or themed level, you need to make a hazard that complements your own theme that also stands out. Make it glow a specific way. Do not only resort to adding just a skull or an exclamation mark over the hazard. No, most players will actually overlook this and die to the hazards regardless. Also vice versa, do not design normal objects that look like hazards. It's weird and confusing. La Citadel, yes, this level again, has a very weird way to tell you what is a hazard by making a surface smooth. If you can fall on certain things from a long distance, and you can stand on stuff that looks way spikier than the thing that is a hazard, then this doesn't make any sense at all. So when making a hazard for a level or a specific part of a level, make sure it's consistent, make sure it stands out, and make it actually make sense. One of the biggest reasons someone might find a level unfun to play is because of the camera. Since the camera is responsible for your field of view, some creators might just accidentally use the camera triggers in a wrong way that makes the playing experience unbearable. Not being able to tell when a hazard is coming up is bad. Being surprised by it is genuinely rage game material. So a combination of a hazard that doesn't stand out, plus a camera that doesn't give you the correct field of view, you shouldn't be surprised that people want to kill you. In levels that have a lot of static rooms, creators tend to move the camera immediately to the point where the creator just doesn't know when to react exactly. This is also best seen in... yeah. Now obviously it's way more difficult to adjust a camera that transitions from a static room to another, but this is also a skill that needs to be learned, because when you want to jump with a robot or a cube or any other game mode from one room to another, you're basically just jump scaring the player with the next room immediately without knowing how to react, especially if you put hazards next to that transition. That is just awful. If you're gonna do that and you're gonna have the room appear immediately, do not put hazards at all. Also, when creating a level that requires vertical movement, like a tower level for example, please learn how to vertically use the camera properly and know the exact ratio at which the camera is supposed to move when you jump, because if you don't know that, the camera will look wobbly and springy and will make it less fun to play in general. Do not make your gameplay hand-holdy. It's boring. Let's say you have a gimmick where you push boxes around the level. Do not highlight the box and clickbait it and make it so obvious that this box is supposed to be pushed. Actually respect the player's own curiosity to figure the level out. That does not mean that you should leave the player alone in a stranded desert. No. Give very necessary and slight information about how to get the ball rolling for the player, and then they're gonna figure it out themselves. Back to the box example. How do we make this box interesting to the player for them to interact with it? The easiest and most simple way is to force the player to use the box. Make the box big enough for the player to bump into it. Now they're gonna know that it moves. It's way more fun and engaging for you to figure this stuff out yourself, so that when you come across another box, you know in your head that you can now move boxes like these, and you will start to subconsciously move them now. You know, this is cool. Instead of just zooming in the camera on the box, highlighting the box, and telling you, "Way, move the box right now." This box analogy could be implemented for any other idea you have inside of your head. Another example that needs you to respect the player's own intelligence is coin placements. Whenever you're trying to like hold like a secret collectible or a coin or whatever in a platformer, do not make it painfully obvious where it is. Like this level, for example, that just literally has a sign that says, hey, there's a coin down there. One of the best applications I've seen for a secret coin is surprisingly in a RobTop platformer. You know how the secret hollow has shitty coins that don't make sense? Well, there is only one coin that I really like a lot. When you enter this section and you realize that you need to turn yourself into a ball, you just go through the level, get to the ball game mode, and then fall again. Most players would choose to go right, but you can actually go back again for no reason. So someone with a curious mind could just go back in the level with the ball and use the ball's gravity features to access a coin that shouldn't be accessed in the first place. The only critique I have of this is that he should have at least made the coin a bit visible instead of just completely in the shadows. But I really like this game design choice. It encourages players to look for more secrets, and the more those secrets are well hidden, the more rewarding it will feel collecting them, which increases the overall enjoyment of a level. Continuity is also important. Do not make a certain object that looks a certain way move, and then later down the level, this same object just doesn't move anymore. The most important trigger to learn when making a platformer is not what you think. It's not just the spawn trigger. It's the spawn, the camera, and the event trigger. Think of it as like an advanced touch trigger that has if statements. That means that you can do stuff with it that happen when certain events take place. The event trigger is mostly used for implementing sound effects. Picking the correct sound effects are very, very important, since sound effects are responsible for basically half of the immersion of the level. Implementing sound effects can be your own creative choice, but make sure it fits the theme that you're trying to portray. Do not just put any sound effects. And make sure that the volume of the sound effect is reasonable. Do not make sound effects that are very loud and annoying. Song choice is also important. Do not just use any song because you feel like it. Make sure the song choice actually matches the vibe that you go with. I think that's basically the same rules you have for normal GD levels. Actually, you know what? Use the song that you feel like it, but don't be surprised if people find it weird. Now, here's a bunch of quality of life things that you need to look out for. If you're going to use a song, make sure you know how big this song is. For the entire audio of the level, you need to max out at like 50 megabytes, and that's like pushing it. Anything higher than 50, then stuff just gets a bit weird. Do not use like 10 songs if you're gonna use like 5 seconds of them. That is bad. Colin told me about a level that has a 1 in 10 chance of just playing a new song every attempt. And the entire level is 120 megabytes. That is almost the entire size of the fucking game. What are you doing? Now, this just doesn't have to do with like flexing on people with slower internet, but like the wait itself is also part of the experience. If you have to wait for too long, you might just get turned off from playing the level itself anyway. And even worse, once players figure out that this unknown megabytes of song is like incredibly large, they just will not play the level with your songs in it, and the entire experience of the level diminishes significantly because a core element of the level is missing, since you really wanted to use 10 songs, I guess. So yeah, next time you wanna like use a song in your level, ask yourself, is it really necessary to put The Undertaker's Daughter in my level? If the answer is no, then just shut the fuck up. One more quality of life thing that you need to look out for is to make people know what they're getting themselves into. Like if your level's long and it takes a long while to complete, like an hour or 45 minutes at least, you need to tell people that this level will take a long time to do so that they can be mentally prepared for it. When someone plays a level, you want them to basically respect your artwork, so that means that they should be fully focused on it for the whole time. Someone could just be playing a casual platformer and then they realize that it just doesn't end ever. You can put that in the beginning of the level, or put that in the description, or even when you're advertising the level, make sure you let people know that the average completion time is within a specific range. Please, for the love of God, stop remaking other games. I know it's fun, I know it's easy, I know, oh my god, we're just having fun, it's completely fine. Do not remake entire games, it's lame. Notice how even in the footage where I tried to explain how to make a good platformer level, we basically ran out of footage and had to use game remakes. When Matty was editing this, I genuinely thought he accidentally slipped a clip of Super Meat Boy, but it's actually a recreation. Same goes with Downwell, same goes with Super Mario, same goes with everything else, like it's fine. fine, okay, you can remake the game if you find it cool, but do not expect everyone to like it. I don't like it. Wanna know why? Because playing the actual game is a more fun experience, because the actual game you're copying is built for the mechanic. I've been building up this entire video for this one section. What does the Swedish man like? What does he look for in a platformer? Remember how I told you that this tutorial is not supposed to be how to decorate or how to technically do something? There are millions and millions of tutorials on that alone. But the thing I wanted to focus on today was basically just the core gameplay. Because yes, the big man himself cares the most about gameplay. No matter how good your level looks, no matter how eye-catching everything is, no matter how technically impressive it is, if your level plays badly, it's bad. Platformers are not like regular classic GD levels, where even when you watch a video, you can appreciate someone's work in real time. No, platformers are long, and videos that are super long deserve to be played instead of just watched. This is why the comments are ruthless in platformer mode. It's because less people are watching videos of platformers and more people are actually playing them, unlike extreme demon levels or just demon levels in general in classic GD. So when creating your platformer, decoration should not be your most concern, but the gameplay is. Most of your brain power should be directed towards the gameplay for the most part. If you want to get an epic or a legendary or even a mythic, you will need to focus very hard on the gameplay, especially for legendaries and mythics. You will not rise there with bad gameplay. You will not rise there with boring gameplay. You will rise there with fun, engaging, and intuitive gameplay. Those who tell you that a legendary or a mythic needs to look conventionally attractive, no, it's all about the actual journey you take inside of this level, the inputs you do, the decisions you make, not just the visuals. One of my favorite legendary rates is Tornado by Abstract Dark, a level that doesn't look conventionally attractive, but it's one of the few levels that dare to be unique in its gameplay. It dare to be unique in the way it portrays its theme. I love this level because Abstract Dark cared about the player. And with him being in my new platformer collab that is releasing in June, me, with the help of Joxy and many other people, excited to present the first ever Mindcap platformer collab. I'd be lying if I told you that everyone knows what this level is about. Most people in it still don't get what the theme is about or how it's supposed to all come together, but I am very excited for everyone to play it relatively soon. And I'm thankful for all the people who worked on it. You know who you are. Oh boy, that was a long one. This video was basically just something that I've been keeping on my head for a long time, and I'm very happy that it's finally done. Thank you so much to Matty for editing this video, and thank you to my coffee supporters. My channel doesn't make as much money as you think it does, because I swear a lot, I just do a lot of bullshit, but I'm not gonna like censor myself for this. So if you want to support the channel, you can support me there too. So yeah, I'll see you when it's finished.